Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while that we've been actually talking to each other. I think the last video, obviously, I was joined by Owen Jordan on the degree apprenticeships video, which has had a great success. So I suppose that's given me no reason but to bring him back onto the channel. So welcome back, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, James. I'm sure the success from the last video left you no option but to bring me back on.
Yeah, well, that and yeah, I suppose that too. But yeah, no, I hope everybody's keeping well. Obviously, in obviously everything that we're going through at the moment. I know that obviously Owen's doing as well as he is. Obviously, we work closely, like we said on the last video. Today's a little bit of a different one. So we spoke about degree apprenticeships last time. We spoke quite a lot about our experience, so we knew it quite well. Whereas today's video, we are going to be talking about How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So both of us have read this book. It is a fantastic read. I think you'll agree, Owen.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's one of the first self-development books I've kind of picked up, and I think I'm right in saying that with yourself. Maybe you've done a couple more than I have. I've just kind of picked it up off the back of, Instagram influencers and recommendations from people at work. And it really does live up to the hype. It's a fantastic read in terms of understanding, well, like the book says, how to win friends and influence people. So yeah, it's been a fantastic read. I'd definitely recommend it to anyone who's trying to build their interpersonal skills and understand a little bit more about how to interact with other people. It's absolutely superb.
I agree, and it does give some really good tips and hints. It doesn't give you activities as such, but it gives you a lot of good things to think about. I mean, I'm just looking at the front of the book here, and a couple of things that it says, 8 things that will help you achieve. This book will help you achieve. So you've got increase your influence, your prestige, your ability to get things done. So it'll help with productivity. Arouse enthusiasm amongst your associates. So like Owen said, it helps you to better the way that you'll talk to people, you understand them. So what we've done in this video is there's 4 chapters within the book. The chapters are techniques in handling people, 6 ways to make people like you, win people to your way of thinking, and be a leader, how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. So what we've done each is we've both picked one point that we liked the most out of the chapter. So obviously it's going to be a lot that we didn't speak about. We're not going to be able to pull on every single quote within the book. Obviously we're going to be speaking about it from our interpretation as well, and how we've seen it from the book. But we picked one point each that we like the most, have a little bit of a discussion about it. Obviously we've always got the comment section down below if anybody wants to ask any more questions or obviously buy the book, then obviously we do recommend to do so. So yeah, should we kick off, or we'll go with my point to start with then? So
Definitely.
Techniques in handling people. So my favorite point of this one was it says to give honest and sincere appreciation. So I think for me, looking at that, there's 2 important parts of that. So honest and sincere appreciation, because the book, you'll agree, Owen, I mean, the book speaks about, you can give appreciation, and that's good because people love to, it makes them feel overwhelming and makes them feel, wow, they've recognized me for what I've done. But the key is to do it with honest and sincere, and you can give appreciation and say thanks, Owen, but if he doesn't feel that, and he doesn't feel that it's truthful, and he doesn't properly understand and know that you're telling the truth, then that won't mean as much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you're definitely right as well. I think it's very easy to give kind of general appreciation to, say, a group of people, but I think the point the book's really trying to make here is tailor that, appreciation and to that individual, make them feel good, and like you say, make sure it's honest and it comes from within yourself, because that will really kind of cause emotions for both yourself and the person, so you can really interact and engage with one another on the positivity.
Yeah, because I think the book speaks about as well is it almost it doesn't mean as much. If I just say, oh, thanks, Owen, I'm not properly saying, do you know what, Owen, on this occasion you did a really superb job, and pick out the details, because obviously if you pick out a specific detail, Owen, yeah, I don't know, that thin piece of hair on your hair looks perfectly aligned today. Well, actually picking out specifics. I mean, the book actually says, "Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise." So properly give the praise and be lavish in it, but do it with a sincere approach.
Mhm.
Um, so that's my number one favorite point. Do you want to go on to your one from the favorite point from techniques and handling people?
Yeah, thank you, James. So the point I've raised, which I particularly like, was the arousing other people an eager want. So I think the book talks about this a lot, kind of the concept of people being out there for what they want to achieve and what they want to do. And I think particularly if you want someone to do something or to work with someone, you've got to, like the book says, engage in their kind of needs and wants. So a really good quote I found was, "The world is full of people who are grabbing and self-seeking, so the rare individual who unselfishly tries to serve others has enormous advantage." And I think that's so apparent more than ever. Um, the book even touches on kind of everything we do in life is because it's what we want to do. But that time when that person shows an actual genuine interest in helping someone else, I think speaks absolute volumes.
Mm.
And again, making sure the actual kind of core of what you're doing evokes what they want to do. So that in that sense, they'll then want to do it because it kind of fits in line with their goals and what they want to achieve, as opposed to just your own. And again, it helps build collaboration, and it makes things a lot simpler if you both want to do something as opposed to just you.
Yeah, and the way that I interpreted it as well, I don't know if you felt the same, but when it says obviously an eager want, if you just say to somebody, "I need you to do this," or "Can you do this?" then that's like almost a direct order. And the book speaks about not giving direct orders because people don't always respond to them. So it's almost like, in another way as well, if you want somebody to do something, give them that eager want as to, you know, that would be really appreciated if you did that, and then that person eagerly wants to do it to match your appreciation. I don't know if you see
Yeah,
it.
it's almost like selling it. It's not going in and saying, "Can you do this? Because this will really help me
Yeah,
to write this report." It's a case of, "Can you really help me with this? Because I think this will help you develop in your teaching skills."
yeah.
Looking at it from their perspective.
Yeah, and it links in really nicely to the next two, well, a couple of points later on. So we'll come back to this because it links on quite nicely with the one on how to be a leader, etc. Cool. So that's obviously chapter one. Then that is just two of many points that are within the chapter one that we thought to be our favourites. So should we move on to 6 ways to make people like you? Um, so
Definitely.
my point from that one was, be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves. So I think it's so important to listen to other people when you're obviously in another conversation. And the book speaks about that, and speaks obviously how if if you're looking vaguely engaged in the conversation, the other person is going to make them maybe be feeling like they're just talking to themselves, and that's not going to be, there's not going to be any interest in the conversation. The conversation is not going to flow. Like if I'm in a conversation with Owen now, I could ask him a question and I could say, you know "Oh, Owen, what's your opinion on that?" And that's, he then listened back to me. And the point of what that chapter speaks about is specifically to be a good listener to what people are speaking about, but also encourage them to speak about themselves. And the book,
Yeah.
like you'll agree, Owen, the book speaks about people's favorite things to talk about are themselves. It's plain simple fact that the favorite thing for people to speak about is themselves. And if you encourage people to speak about themselves and then you follow that up with good listening skills, they'll like you no matter what, because you're
Yeah.
encouraging them to talk about themselves, which they like, and they're talking about themselves, and you're actually listening, which is what they like even more. So it's saying that a
Mm.
good way to make people like you is make them talk about themselves, which they love doing, and actually listen to it and ask questions. I mean, do you see it like that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think the beauty of human nature is that people love to speak about themselves because we're all invested in what we're doing. So if you can use that to positive effect by putting that on someone else, and like, I don't know, for example, with you with the golf, ask you about golf and stuff. I might not be that interested in that, but that, you know, makes you feel good and shows that I do show a genuine interest.
Yeah,
Sometimes even if you don't, it's better to try and evoke and build conversation with the person if it's something that they're interested in, because that'll just benefit you in the long run. There is a really good quote on kind of the recipe for making people want to despise you in this field. I won't bother reading it, but it's on page 99. It's a really good quote on speaking about yourself, and essentially that'll just make people not want to engage with you. But like you say, mate, it's a fantastic point. And it's just all about engaging with the other person and making them want to talk about themselves, and you showing an interest in that.
yeah, because it's true. And if you know, you encourage that and then don't listen after, it's only going to discourage people from speaking about themselves. So yeah, it's a good point. And I suppose that links quite nicely onto your point then. Obviously, your one way of making people like you, it links in quite nicely to that. So do you want to fire away with your one?
Yeah, so the next kind of point I've picked up is talk in terms of the other person's interests. So it's quite similar to the point I spoke about in chapter 1. Again, it's kind of all about trying to cater for the other person's needs and wants as opposed to just your own. A good quote which I've picked out is, "The royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things he or she treasures most." So it's kind of, rather than, like you say, making something a task, try and evoke their emotions and their feelings towards something they're passionate about, because it'll just make things so much easier, because they're interested in it, you're engaging them, and it just makes everything a much smoother road for everyone involved. And obviously as well, you're building that relationship with that person, you're understanding more about them, they're talking about themselves, which is what you talked about, and that's so important because that's what everyone loves to do. So it's a fantastic it's a fantastic tip in building relationships. So
I think the key message there, though, is we've both said, you know, encourage others to talk about themselves, but the key lesson is to, if you're going to do that, is to listen and on, you
yeah,
know, like you say, show that interest. Because if you don't, then you know, not, you know, you're wasting your time, really, aren't you? Because you're encouraging them to do it, and then I'm looking down and I'm going on my phone and I'm looking out the window, and you know, I'm not really, like, you know, it's got to be engaging. So yeah,
yeah,
go on.
yeah, I was just going to add to that. It's sort of like, say if you know, someone asks you how's your weekend been, it's like, it's a very general term, but if you've spoken to them prior to the weekend and they said, "Oh, I'm playing golf, I'm going out with my friends, I'm seeing my grandma," and then on the Monday you say, "Oh, how was golf? How was your grandma?" It's a lot more emotive, and it makes the person feel like you appreciate what they're doing and how they feel. It's a very powerful tool.
Agreed. Yes, very good. Okay, so let's go on to win people to your way of thinking. So how to win people to your way of thinking. So again, there's many different points in this chapter. I think this is actually the one that has the biggest amount of points in out the whole book.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So my point then is try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Now, this book speaks about this very a lot, and I think it brings it. I reflected on it quite a lot because I think, you know, not speaking on behalf of everyone, but certainly speaking on behalf of myself, sometimes you are quick to rush into, you know, a decision. You know, somebody does something and you're thinking, oh, why did they do that? You know, oh, and why have you done that? You know, oh, you shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done this, blah 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 blah. But the book encourages you to think about other people's point of view, and it links quite nicely onto the last 2 points we spoke about as well, because people are interested in themselves, and if you're interested, you're taking on their point of view and you're understanding, you're being sympathetic with it. You know, if something goes wrong, instead of before jumping straight down their neck and having a go at them, you know, you're okay, well, what's been going off? Did you have a bad weekend? You know, have you had a bad day? You know, what was the effect of you doing X, or what led you to doing that, as opposed to just going, you know, down their throat, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. Because, you know, it speaks really goodly about, you know, tips and ways to, and why, and mentally why you should look at it from their perspective. And because you
Mm.
do, like you'll agree, Owen, because you do, people are more inclined to sort of cooperate with you more because they know you're looking out for their point of view.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think as well, it's a bit of a throwaway term people use. Put yourself in my shoes. Think of it from my perspective. But when you really break it down and think, what would I do in that situation if I was that person? Quite a lot of the time, when you may have originally thought it's wrong, you probably would have done, well, I'm not saying always, but you may have done the same thing, but you're still condemning them for
yeah,
doing it. It's very hard to put yourself in someone else's position when you're not in it. But if you can try and grasp it, at least to some extent, I think it makes things a lot easier and makes obviously you finding a resolution for the problem much easier for both of you involved.
I mean, you say condemn there. I mean, the book also, it's not one of our points we raised, but the book also speaks about don't condemn or don't complain. Don't criticize people. And I think there's a good quote that it says, "Don't judge a man until you've walked 1,000 miles in his shoes."
Mm.
And that's this. You shouldn't look at and judge people straight away and jump straight on it without looking at their point of view and their reasoning, like you say, because we may have done it ourselves. So.
Yeah, there's a quote as well, something like, God doesn't judge a man until his death, so why should you and I?
Mm,
Um,
I like that.
so it's just the occasional scenario. Like, say, and another thing is if we're having a bit of a bad day, we're so quick to like, oh, that's a stupid thing to do. Why have they done that? We're not really taking into consideration the full picture and what they're kind of going through in their circumstances. So important to take a step back and see things from all perspectives before kind of jumping down someone's throat.
100%. Yeah. So we spoke then about like not being wrong and judging the wrong. I mean, again, that links quite nicely onto your point then. So do you want to go with your win people way of thinking?
Yeah, I'd say this is probably one of my favourite points in the book. I think this really kind of resonated with me. So the point is, if you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. And I think this is such a kind of talked about topic in workplaces, whether, because I think when we do something wrong, we're so quick to try and cover our backs like, oh no, I didn't do this, or I meant it like this. And it's just human nature to try and cover up what you've done. And sometimes you'll get so much more respect by simply saying, look, I did this wrong. How can I work on it? Kind of try and ask how you can work on it for next time. And there's a really good quote: isn't it much easier to listen to self-criticism than to hear condemnation from alien lips? So it's much easier to say in yourself, I've done this wrong, than from someone else to say you've done this wrong. Because if you do it within yourself, no one else has to, because then you put it right. And it
Yeah.
doesn't go unnoticed, but the fact you've taken it upon yourself to sort things out and accept that you've done something wrong speaks way more volumes than trying to cover your tracks and kind of not accepting you're wrong when you are. And that again, elaborating on that a bit further, if you accept you're wrong, next time you're with that person and they're wrong, they're more likely to do so, and it just makes things a lot more open and honest between the both of you, or even in a group environment. It makes things a lot more open. So it's a great tool.
The way that I took it as well is if you do admit that you're wrong, we all do try and cover things. We've all done it, we naturally, because we may be scared of the credibility that will happen or anything. But the quicker you are to not admit your mistakes, the less learning you're going to take from it, because you just want to push it to the side and you want to forget it. Whereas every mistake you make has got learning within it. So if you admit that straight away, you're also allowing yourself to look into it and to learn from it. You know, um, so yeah, I like that. I mean, I think my that's obviously your favourite point. Then my favourite point was earlier on. Obviously, the encourage people to talk about themselves, because I think that's it's a driver in many people. But it's interesting to see that that's your point of view.
Yeah, it's one of. I don't know about my favourite. It's definitely up there.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the last chapter, then again, many points in this one, but we have actually gone for the same favorite point from this chapter. So we've actually agreed on this one, which is to be a leader, how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. So the point that we've both gone on this one is give the other person a fine reputation to live up to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to be honest, this would be one of my favorite ones as well, actually, because this is, I know you like this one. But the book, I mean, I can kick us off if you want, and then you sort of add chip in after.
Yeah, go for it.
So the book, the book speaks about if you give. It speaks back to what we were talking about earlier. Obviously, you've got to make somebody want to do something. I could give a direct order right now, and I could say, I need you to go to Tesco's and get this. And because it's going to be a direct, straight order, you're going to go, wow, that was a bit, straight to the point. Whereas if you give somebody a reputation to live up to, oh, well, I know that you're usually really good at going to shopping every week and getting us everything that we need in store. And I can always rely on you to go to Tesco's and get us what we need. And then you don't say anything. The person's thinking unconsciously, they're thinking, they know that I'm really good at doing that every week. And if I don't go, then I'm going to wreck that reputation. And I don't want to do that. So off they pop to the shops. That's obviously a very different example, but that's the way that I look at it. I mean, is that how you see it as well?
Yeah, I think the book uses an example of a mechanic fixing cars. So
Yeah.
the person's so good at fixing cars, but the one time he makes one mistake, it's kind of like, oh my God, what's happened here? And then actually we need to take a step back and think, this person's really good at what they do. So I should be praising them for that. And because they made one mistake, it stands out more than anything. But that's only just because they're so good and they've built a good reputation of being good at what they do. So that's really important, I think, that to remember a lot of the time when a mistake sticks out is because that person very rarely makes mistakes and they're very competent at what they do. So by giving them a reputation of being good and, like you say, competent and on time and punctual and things like that, people want to aspire to live up to that and uphold it because everyone likes to feel good at what they do. So yeah, again, I think that's a fantastic point.
Is it the Mercedes example? I think it is, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Later, obviously, it's later on in the book, but if we relate to that, mechanic example, you made John, you made a mistake on this. Usually your MOTs that you do are spot on. Every MOT you've ever done for me has been amazing. And if we've had a problem, you fixed it straight away. And then John's thinking, oh, wow, Owen thinks that I've got a reputation. He's building me a reputation. I'm living up to something. And it's links back quite nicely to everything that we spoke about is, making it in terms of their interests. John's reputation has got to live up to, rather than giving him a direct order. John, I need you to fix this. You're encouraging him and making him want to fix it. So yeah, I think that's a really nice point to finish on, don't you?
yeah, definitely. Brilliant.
I mean, obviously, like I say, this book is a fantastic read, and obviously, we wanted this to be a sort of a quick few points of our favourites. I mean, obviously, the book is, it's how many pages? Is 260 pages nearly, the book is. So obviously, it's very thick. It's got a lot more that we haven't even touched on. But we'd be here hours talking about each point, and we could probably talk about each single point that we spoke about today for a good hour. But it is a really good, fantastic read. And like I say, if anybody wants to pop down in the comments below any questions, wants to know any further points, or anything like that, if anybody
Definitely.
put down that they've enjoyed Owen coming on for the second time, and I'll have to try and live up to get him to come on the third time.
Yeah, it'd be good to know if anyone else has got any recommendations for kind of self-development books of similar nature as well, because I'm sure there's plenty out there which are value adding. So drop those in the comments, and they may be in future videos.
Yeah, well, we are looking to do a few of these, and if people find of interest and sort of help them look at good books to read, then obviously let us know. As you can see here, we've got a few here that we are both sort of reading, so we can look to do this again in the future if people enjoy it. So yeah, thank you very much for coming and watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on, James. Take care, everyone.
Bye.